Follow along with me to see how I made this glass plate stop motion animation at my residency at Pilchuck Glass School. Pilchuck is actually located on a 1,500-acre tree farm just outside of Stanwood, Washington. It is a beautiful campus and known the world over as a place to go and study glass. I was lucky enough to get accepted into a residency that was focused on working with glass plates in order to create prints and other various forms of visual media. This print workshop was focused on using botanicals and the local environment around Pilchuck as an inspiration point to create our images. So we took a hike as a group, and you can see this is definitely giving some ah ha 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 vibes, but it was a lot of fun. We got to walk around, we got to really enjoy the nature, we got to really enjoy some of the beautiful hikes on Pilchuck's campus, and I was super inspired by these awesome banana slugs and these European slugs as well. They definitely make an appearance in some of the other artwork I made during my residency, but for my animation, I actually found myself coming back to images of dandelions as my starting point. And so once we got back to campus, I decided to draw out my dandelion life cycle as frames of animation. So I have 16 different drawings here. Once I got them drawn out, I moved them into a vector program so that I could connect them to a vinyl plotter and actually cut them out with vinyl so that I can use them to create a resist on my glass plates. So here the lab technician is cutting off the vinyl after it was all printed out. Since my animation is going to be 16 frames, I needed to have 16 plates of glass. So sit back and enjoy this ASMR as I cut the glass plates. After getting my 16 equally sized plates, they were very, very sharp. This is 3/8 float glass, so it's extremely thick and extremely sharp once it's cut. And the next step involves using a water jet belt sander in order to grind down those edges. This process is called seaming. And so each plate, I have 16 of them, has 12 edges that you have to go through and meticulously seam to make sure that the glass is no longer sharp enough to cut you. This was a really time-intensive process. But at the end of it, you can see I have all 16 plates here, all ready to go. Once I got them cut down and seamed, then it was time to clean them. Here I'm using denatured alcohol in order to get all of the grit and silica dust off of the plates. And then it was time to prep the vinyl. I'm using contact paper to adhere to the vinyl so that way when I put the vinyl down on the glass plates, I can make sure that I get everything lined up and squared away, and I can have an easier time removing the parts of the plate that I want to expose and keeping the parts of the plate covered that I want to keep covered. Working with the vinyl and the contact paper was another very time-intensive process. I was actually really surprised that each of these steps is extremely labor-intensive and extremely time-intensive, and so it requires a lot of attention to detail. Once I got everything applied, you can see here I'm very tired. It's been a very long day. I think I'm at hour 16 of this day. It's time to begin weeding the vinyl, which is where you very carefully pull away the parts of the vinyl that you want to remove, and you want to keep the other parts hidden. And so since I'm going to be sandblasting these, I want to remove the part of the design that shows off the dandelion shape, but I want to keep the vinyl over the glass so that it's not going to be hit by sand when I go to the sandblaster. Here you can see part of this process. I'm almost done. I think I'd been doing this for 3 or 4 hours at this point, and I have almost all the plates covered. The next day, after getting a little bit of sleep, it was time to head back to the cold shop and get ready to sandblast. Sandblasting, just like working with the belt sander, is extremely dangerous. There's a lot of silica dust, so you have to use a lot of PPE in order to get started. So here I am putting my arms in the big sandblasting unit, and then I'm using a switch on the floor in order to control the sandblaster. And so my arms are inside the machine and they're holding the hose where the sand comes out of. And this is what they look like through one round of sandblasting. I did 3 or 4 rounds to make a really deep recess where that design is. And so here you can see some of the plates inside the sandblaster, and then this is the view as you're working in the sandblaster. Once I got everything sandblasted, it was time to head back to the studio and begin taking off all of the remaining vinyl and then getting all of the plates cleaned up. Once again, the vinyl is extremely sticky, and removing vinyl or placing vinyl is extremely labor and time intensive. I just had no idea that it would take so long and would require so much effort and energy. The vinyl is very sticky and does not want to come off. And so I think for each of my plates, it took maybe 20 or 30 minutes to get them fully removed. But here's what they look like, all cleaned up with all the vinyl removed, so you can see all of the designs. And this was all of the leftover vinyl. Ugh, so gross. My hands were so sore after getting all of that removed. But once I had it all done, I had my plates all ready, and then it was time to choose a location. Here's the location I chose in order to shoot my animation. All said and done, this final 16-second animation is approximately 30 plus hours of work. It was a blast to make. It was so much fun to experiment, combining my digital process with a more analog and traditional process. And make sure that you tune back in for my next video about some of the other artwork I made while I was at Pilchuck. Thanks. Bye.